y'all, it's Zoe and welcome back to another video on my channel. Today I'm going to be filming another crash course Fulbright Taiwan video where I'm going to be talking about everything you need to know to prepare for Taiwan. So I have this giant list on my phone that has everything you need to know about everything, and you can use the little scroll thing to find exactly what you need. So I hope that this answers a lot of questions that you might have. I had a lot of questions before I came to Taiwan, and if you are coming next year as a 24-25 Fulbright ETA or ETF, we do have a Discord channel, so I'll link that down below. But a lot of these questions have been kind of talked about, and it's also just stuff that I wrote as was happening. So let's get into this video. Alright, so first I'm going to talk about the health certificate and health exam. So my TECO office in Houston was very specific about what they want. So make sure that it is signed and filled out properly by both TECO and IIE. They will email you back if there's like something missing or if you filled out something wrong. And for TECO, if you're mailing it in, it might be a little difficult if there's something wrong. I went there in person, and so it was able for me to like know what's wrong and fix it while I was there. Major thing that I had issues with was a stamp on my form, and hospitals and offices in the US don't really have like an official stamp. So I ended up giving them like an appointment card that had the name of like a random physician at my clinic, and then the name of the clinic I went to that I was a patient with, and that seemed to work. So if you don't have like an official stamp, then you can just use that. And then make sure you get all of the tests done. So I ended up doing a stool sample, and apparently I didn't need to do it. So if you've already done it, good for you. If you haven't done it yet, then I guess you don't really need to. And for the health exam, I know I'm filming this and uploading this really late, but if you're watching this or maybe a future year, do the health exam as soon as possible, just because you don't really know how long it's going to take your doctor's office to get those forms back for you, because there's a lot that they have to fill out and sign. And you have to do that before you can apply for your visa, and then your visa is also going to take some time. So just do it as soon as you can. And then you don't need any specific vaccinations for Taiwan, but just make sure all your vaccines are up to date, because they will ask for vaccine history. And if you want to get a COVID shot, it wouldn't hurt. You can get COVID and flu shots in Taiwan, but just make sure you have at least your basic vaccines done. And then you will need to get your health certificate notarized. I think this is just so the TECO office knows that you didn't falsify the results. So we have a family friend who's a notary republic, so we just use that. I think it's just for the TECO office, honestly. Alright, and then in terms of your visa, you need to bring 3 passport photos with you, or mail in 3 passport photos. So 1 is for the health certificate, and then 2 is for the actual application. I brought 2, so I had to go back to a Walgreens to take more photos and bring them. And then for me, it took about 2 weeks for the visa to come. Some people it might take longer. If you're in a bigger office like New York or Atlanta, it might take you up to a month. So just be prepared. And then some offices only take cash. When I went to mine, they only took cash as a form of payment. Fulbright does weave the main fee, but then there are some extra fees you might have to pay for, like shipping your passport back to you and stuff. Make sure that you printed out and brought everything that Fulbright has given you. They will send you an email with everything you need to print. Just print it, bring it. They took it all. And then they will check to see if you've been in the country for at least 4 years, like been in the US for at least 4 years. And then I brought my college transcript, but they didn't end up needing it. But I brought it just as proof that I've been in the US for 4 years. And then my current passport has a China visa on it, and so they were like counting. And so I think that depending if you've been to China recently, they might be a little stingy on letting you into Taiwan. And I think that's just because you have to have like gone after a certain amount of time. But my visa was also expired, so if you have like one of those 10-year visas, I don't think you'll have an issue. I don't really know why it was an issue, why they were counting on their fingers, but whatever. Alright, and then in terms of your prescriptions, definitely check with your insurance and pharmacy about supplying them for you. There is like a guideline for prescription meds on the airport website, which basically says you can bring up to 6 months worth of a prescription, and if you have a non-prescription, it's up to 2 months. But I did not end up doing that. I brought a note with me, but when I entered Taiwan and I went through customs, I didn't declare them because I just packed them in my bags and I had no problems at all. They didn't end up scanning my bags, x-raying my bags, questioning me if I had medication. So if you're worried about bringing in birth control or contacts for a year, I wouldn't really worry about it. You can bring a note if you want, but I didn't end up using it. If you're like shipping medicine, like if someone is shipping it to you, there is like certain forms you have to fill out. But again, I just had my mom pack it in her suitcase when she came to visit me and it was fine. And then for over-the-counter medications, it says that there is a limit on the website and it says up to 12 bottles per type with maximum of 36 bottles. But I didn't even bring that. And if you watched my packing video, you'll see that you don't really need to bring as much OTC medication as you think. The ones I use the most are probably Tums and Benadryl. And then in terms of contact lenses, that like form on the website, it says up to 60 pieces. I'm not really sure what that means, but again, people had no problem bringing in a year's worth of medications. All right, and then in terms of the driver's permit, if you've heard of the international driver's permit, some people got it so they're able to drive scooters or drive cars in Taiwan. I also got it just in case I ever needed it. I didn't end up ever using it, but my friend did use it. He rented a car a lot. So all you have to do is fill out the application on the AAA website. It only costs like $25. And then you also need passport sized photos for that application. And then you also need to have a valid driver's license, and then they'll give you this little booklet. It'll have an expiration date. And there's also a place to say like which countries you're not allowed to drive in. But if you're just getting it, you shouldn't have any. And then when you get to Taiwan, it apparently needs to be validated before you can actually physically use it. Some car companies won't rent to you if you don't have it validated. In terms of renting scooters, I think scooter companies are a little more lenient on if you don't have a permit or not, but there are some places that require you to have a permit or license. So if you're in a county that isn't giving you scooters like Taipei and New Taipei, I would recommend finding a company that doesn't really care if you have a permit, finding an electric scooter, or finding someone who knows how to ride a scooter and then riding with them. SIM cards. SIM cards is the big one that everyone always asks questions about. So this really depends on your phone and your phone provider, but I will say make sure your phone is unlocked. If you want to use your main phone, it needs to be unlocked. And the way you can check that is just by going into your settings and checking your cellular and your SIM card. You can also maybe like call or go to your phone company. So before I left, I went to my phone company, which is Verizon, and I asked them about international plans. And it was really expensive to add international plans each month or pay for it each day. So I ended up not using my US SIM. It basically just means I turned it off. So if you take the SIM card out of your phone or you turn it off, you still have your number. You still have the SIM. It's just not currently active, which means you can't get texts or phone calls to that specific number. Because I have an iPhone, you can get messages to an email. So I switched a lot of my messages to email, and then people could text me from there. And also when I got a Taiwan number, because my phone is unlocked, I was able to put my Taiwan number on this phone and people could iMessage the Taiwan number. So most iPhones have what's called an eSIM, which means there's not a physical SIM. And a lot of the phone companies in Taiwan accommodate eSIM. It's basically just a QR code that you scan and that gives you your phone number. So when you go to buy your SIM card, make sure you tell the company you need an eSIM. When we got there, we had a 1-month temporary eSIM because we needed a phone number to set up a bank account. And then after that, we were able to get a full long-term plan. Both times I had eSIMs, both times no problem. I did end up bringing a burner phone, but I didn't end up using it because I was able to put it on this phone. And if you have a US plan that accommodates international and you want to keep it on, some newer iPhones have something called SIM switching, where basically you can decide which number you want to be your main call and which number you want to be your data. So if you can keep your US number on for messages, but then you want to use your Taiwan plan for data, you can do that. And then you can also, if you have an iPhone, choose to get messages received on both your US and your Taiwan numbers. And hopefully your coordinators will help you get a SIM card, but recently I've heard that they're not helping, so hopefully this video helps. And if some phones have dual SIM where you can have a physical card and an eSIM, it works the same way, I'm sure. So next is global entry. So global entry is kind of like TSA pre-check, but I don't have global entry. I think it's basically just like a way for you to skip lines. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can. It's 4 to 6 months to process. And you can go through something called an e-gate, and it's very similar to like TSA pre-check, so there's a fee, in-person interview, etc. Again, I don't really know how much it works, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, but I will say when you're coming back into the US, there is an app you should download. It's called Mobile Passport Control. It's kind of similar to global entry, except instead of having to go through this whole process, you just do it right then and there, and it's basically lets you skip the super long immigration line back into the US, and you can just go into the short line. Shout out to my mom for that. So I highly recommend doing that when coming back into the US. Alright, and then in terms of packing and preparing, Fulbright covers 2 checked suitcases and 1 carry-on, and so that's what I brought, and I ended up coming back with a ton more suitcases, so don't do what I did. But don't overpack, and also pay attention to the weight. It will be in kilograms, but it's about 50 US pounds for your checked luggage. And some of the domestic flight, so your domestic flight might have different weight requirements than your international flight. Sometimes international flights let you go up to 60, while domestic keeps you at 50, so just double check your weight limits because that might screw you up. And then some airlines, international airlines, weigh your carry-on. I did not have to go through that, but some do, so be careful with that too. And then I did make another video about packing, like do's and don'ts of packing, so you can go watch all that video because it looks like I wrote it all here. But yeah, just go watch the other video. And then in terms of like AC adapters, so Taiwan uses the same plugs as in the US, so you don't really need to bring that. But if you're planning to travel to other countries, I would recommend bringing an adapter, just because places like Korea, Japan, they might use different ones. And then for New Taipei, the first month we were there, we were placed in a temporary apartment / hotel, and all the other counties will also be placed in a temporary apartment, so I would keep that in mind when you're packing. I put most of the clothes that I would wear for that like first few weeks in a separate suitcase, so I wouldn't have to be digging around. I also wrote down what I put in each suitcase so I could easily find it. And then some counties might tell you to put like the rest of your bags in storage and only use 1 suitcase, so just keep that in mind. And then in terms of mailing things can be pretty pricey, so you can pretty much find everything you need in Taiwan. You can have people mail you stuff, but depending on the weight and size, it can get a little expensive. Same thing with shipping stuff back. If you want to ship stuff back to the US from Taiwan, that can also be really expensive. So just keep that in mind. It's your money, your budgeting. You can do whatever you want. And I will make a video about budgeting as well. And then I mentioned this in my packing video, but definitely bring gifts. It's just a cultural thing there. They love to give gifts, and also it would just be something really nice to represent where you're from. So I brought kind of Texas themed things, so I would recommend for your students, your teachers, and your coordinators. And like I mentioned in the packing video, you may not know how many you have, so just bring something that's bulk, like stickers, keychains, candy, things like that. Hey y'all, Editing Zoe here. I just remembered 2 things I forgot to talk about. So the first is VPN. I did end up purchasing a VPN before I went, but I would say I hardly used it. So really only use it if you really can't let go of things like Hulu and HBO Max. Sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't work, even with a subscription. I recommend ExpressVPN, VPN Unlimited, and NordVPN. I think all of those were common ones. You do need a subscription for them to work properly, and again, sometimes it works, sometimes it didn't, but I was able to use it on things like Netflix and Disney Plus, which Taiwan already has, and for it to give me the US options. Sometimes it worked on my computer, sometimes it only worked on my phone, so it can work, but just be prepared in case it doesn't. And this isn't China, so you don't need it for social media. You have access to all social media, Google, etc. And then also for your lesson plans and PowerPoints, I highly recommend preparing lots of photos of you and your family and back home. You can bring them in person as well, but I used a lot of mine more on PowerPoints. So if there were certain lessons that I wanted to show them pictures from my time back home, it was very popular, such as Halloween or Christmas, and just how I celebrated that. And if you don't celebrate Christmas and you celebrate another holiday, maybe adding some pictures of that as well. So you can bring them in person, but as long as you have them on a digital file and can put them on a PowerPoint, I'm sure that your students would love to see a little bit of home. Okay, let's get back to the video. So that's pretty much all you need to know about preparing for Taiwan. Hopefully this helps ease some of your questions. We've been getting a lot of questions on the Discord about eSIMs and packing and visas and all that. So I hope that this video helped at least a little bit. And if you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer them down below. I need to go film more videos, but I need to go buy another SD card. So I will see you all in the next video. Again, hoping to post every other day in July to catch up on all of the videos that I have been missing. So I will see you all in the next video, and I hope you have a great day. Bye!